All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on an elite military unit with a name that says it all, the Daring Tigers. We're talking about the 23rd East Bengal Regiment of the Bangladesh Army.
So let's jump right in. Our story starts not way back in the history books, but right now, or pretty close. Picture the tense, crowded streets of Dhaka in 2024. The city's on edge, dealing with some serious political changes and unrest.
And it's right here, in this urban maze, that the Daring Tigers have really made their modern name. They've become the ones you call when things get messy. And look at what they've been doing. I mean, this is far more than just patrolling. Under commanders like Lieutenant Colonel Nazim Ahmed, they've been running these high-stakes search and seize ops. They're moving into really volatile areas, think Mohammedpur, Savar, even raiding places like the Geneva camp, to get illegal weapons off the streets and go after major criminal leaders. You know, they were basically the force that stopped the city from tipping over into all-out gang warfare.
So that brings up a really interesting question, right? Who are these guys? How can one single unit be so good at putting a lid on urban crime at home while also being celebrated as heroes on the world stage? Well, to get that answer, we've got to rewind the clock a bit.
To really get who the Daring Tigers are today, you have to understand where they come from. And while the 23rd Battalion itself is pretty modern, its spirit, well, that was forged in the fire of Bangladesh's birth.
You can see their roots run deep here. Their parent unit, the East Bengal Regiment, got its start back in 1948. But 1971, that was the defining moment. During the Liberation War, they became the absolute backbone of the Mukti Bahani, the freedom fighters. So even though the 23rd was officially formed after independence, they inherited this incredibly powerful legacy. The DNA of those who fought for the nation's freedom is just baked right into the unit.
Okay, so let's break down what it means to be a Daring Tiger. You can actually learn a ton about a unit just by looking at its symbols, its motto, and how it's put together.
First up, their motto: grace, strength, speed. Now, this isn't just some cool-sounding phrase. It's their entire philosophy. Grace is about their professionalism and discipline. Strength is their raw combat power. And speed, that's all about their lightning-fast raids and decisive action. It tells you exactly how they operate.
And their insignia tells a story perfectly. Of course, you've got the Royal Bengal Tiger. It's the ultimate symbol of Bangladesh, of ferocity and national pride. But look closer. Right behind the tiger's head, you see two crossed dows. Those are traditional Bengali swords. That combination is just brilliant. It's saying, we have modern military might, but we are deeply connected to our own heritage.
And just to give you an idea of their size, we're talking about a battalion with somewhere between 600 and 800 soldiers. So it's a really solid, cohesive fighting force that can make a huge impact wherever they're sent.
And all of that is held together by a super clear, hierarchical command structure. It's a system many will recognize, based on the British model. From the lieutenant colonel in charge all the way down to the newest soldier. This strict chain of command is what ensures they're so disciplined and effective, whether they're on the streets of Dhaka or peacekeeping in a war zone.
And speaking of war zones, that brings us to the other half of their story. Because the Daring Tigers aren't just an elite domestic force, they are also celebrated peacekeepers on the global stage. It's a total flip of the coin.
Think about this. Soldiers from the 23rd have put on that iconic UN blue helmet and served in some of the most difficult places on Earth, the DR Congo, South Sudan, Mali. Their job there is completely different. They're protecting civilians, helping with humanitarian aid, and they've won international medals for their incredible discipline. This work is a huge reason why Bangladesh is seen as one of the top troop-contributing nations to the UN.
So, this is the key. This is the whole story in a nutshell. You have these two completely different identities living inside one unit. On one side, you have the UN peacekeeper in a blue helmet handing out aid. On the other, the domestic enforcer in tiger pattern camo, kicking down doors. One protects civilians in a foreign country, the other takes down criminal networks back home. It really makes you wonder, how does being good at one job affect how you do the other?
So how do you even begin to square that circle? It's not just that they do two different jobs, it's that these jobs almost seem to contradict each other. One needs diplomacy and restraint, the other needs overwhelming force.
You know, there's a phrase people use to describe them that just nails this tension. A shield for the innocent, a terror for the criminal. But think about that for a second. How do you train a soldier to be a shield one day, to be a guardian, to be empathetic, and a terror the next? The real challenge is making sure the mindset for one doesn't bleed over and corrupt the other.
In the end, their whole legacy is a high-wire balancing act. On the one hand, the discipline they learned on UN missions probably makes them a more professional force at home.
But there's a definite risk, right? The skills you need to raid a cartel safehouse are just fundamentally different from the ones you need to guard a food distribution center. The daring tigers live right on that knife's edge, and in a way, they're a perfect reflection of the complex, contradictory demands we place on all modern armies.
And that leaves us with one final thing to think about. The story of the Daring Tigers is about more than just one battalion. It forces us to ask a much bigger question. How do elite units like this one, with these dual, conflicting roles, end up shaping an entire nation's identity, both in how it sees itself and how the rest of the world sees it?